being dragged in by his arms, and you could see the distress and pain on his face when he was shoved into the van. These are criminal, violent actions by a police force that is totally and absolutely out of control. And for that reason, I will be going over now to the police once again and requesting to know exactly what they are up to at Speaker's Corner, and whether they have taken away the right to speak at Speaker's Corner, and under what legislative framework they have done so. Last week I said I'm happy for people to gather 2 meters apart. That was the police officer's complaint. When people tried to gather 2 meters apart, the police officer tried to arrest me. He was clearly hyped up. I don't know what his mental problem is, but he has some sort of mental problem, and he felt that he had to arrest somebody. That is not how a democracy works. That is not how policing works in a so-called liberal democracy. Policing must be based on some form of legislative framework and on some form of consent. Simply arresting people is the hallmark of a police dictatorship. And that is where we have ended up now, under the new coronavirus legislation, under a de facto police dictatorship, where we have no right to protest, no right to complain, no right to disagree, and where any arbitrary imposition of power can be made by any police officer in the land, without regard for any legal framework. That is why I am opposed to the corona dictatorship they're imposing. It has nothing to do with health. There is no evidence from anywhere in the world, from Black Lives Matter protests, from street protests in Bolivia, from street protests in Lebanon, from the general strike in India 2 weeks ago, with 250 million people marching on the streets, or from the anti-lockdown protests all around the world. There is no evidence of the transmission of one single case of coronavirus in the open air on those demonstrations. Given that the government knows this, that's why they say you can go out in the open air. Given that they know you cannot catch it easily in the open air, and it's never been caught on demonstrations, why are they afraid to allow us to demonstrate? In case we find out who's stolen the money, who stole the money that's been given out in the name of coronavirus, which tech companies, which pharmaceutical companies, which testing companies, which police surveillance companies, which of them have made money out of coronavirus, and how many of them are directly tied to the government, to the links between the government, SAGE, the so-called scientific committee, and also between National Health Service providers, privateers, who've been plundering the NHS and destroying the NHS in front of our eyes in the name of fighting coronavirus. Every single day we are told more and more lies. The latest lie is that there is some mutant strain going around, and that's more deadly and more serious than anything else in the world. It is a lie. More people die. 2 million children a year nearly die of pneumonia, under 5 years of age. Tuberculosis, 1.5 million. Malaria, 495,000. AIDS, an extra million deaths are expected this year from AIDS because of the lack of treatment, because of the way in which the health services around the world have been decimated, destroyed and closed in the name of fighting coronavirus. This is not about coronavirus. This is about the imposition of dictatorial powers by insane technology companies and pharma companies who have seized control over the politics of the world and are pushing us towards a dystopia where we've already spent nearly a year alienated from each other, unable to hug, kiss, show friendship and love to our family and others. This is a world of insanity. There was no grounds to close down Christmas. There was no grounds to close down New Year. There was no grounds to close down even the Notting Hill Carnival. As I said, no evidence for catching the virus in the open air on demonstrations, protests or events. No evidence. We are supposed to have a policy driven by evidence, but we do not. We have policy driven by lies and by liars. That's why I'm going to go over and confront the police now.